There's this African-American literary critic named Henry Louis Gates Jr., and he discovered a bunch of first-hand accounts, a bunch of memoirs of formerly enslaved peoples in the United States, narrating their experience in captivity and some of them in eventual liberation. And he came across a trope in so many of these stories, so common that he ended up giving the trope a name, and he called the trope the talking book. And this is a reference to a common experience that many of these slaves had. Many of these slaves encountered the Bible for the first time in the hands of their enslavers, obviously, and the talking book is a reference to the way that their enslavers would talk about the text. Their enslavers would say, "The Bible speaks to me." Their enslavers would say, "The Bible says this." In particular, the Bible says, that I can't enslave you. The Bible says this is something God wants. The Bible says this is the way the world is supposed to work, with me owning you. And then many of these slaves go on to recount stories about how they finally got their hands on a Bible for themselves. For one slave, their enslaver leaves out the Bible on the deck of a ship, and so the slave sort of sneaks up to it and then opens it and puts their ear to it and listens to the pages to see what the Bible is going to say. And the slave is very disappointed when the Bible does not speak to him, and the enslaver concludes that not only does the whole world hate him, but God hates him too, because the book won't talk to him. But other slaves have a similar experience of listening to the pages of the text and finding that, of course, it doesn't say anything. And of course it doesn't say anything. It's a book, and books don't speak. But saying that the book does speak is a very convenient excuse. It's a convenient excuse for something that the New Testament scholar Dale Martin calls the myth of textual agency. Of course, if the Bible speaks, then anything that we do with the Bible is not our responsibility, right? We're just doing what the Bible says to do. But of course, if we are readers and interpreters of the text and the Bible isn't speaking, then we are responsible for anything that we do with the text. So if you're going to enslave an entire group of people on the basis of their skin color, you better talk about the text like the text is speaking, because then it's not your fault, right? The text told you to do it. But if you are reading and interpreting the text and then decide on that basis to enslave a bunch of people, well, that's on you, right? The Bible doesn't speak because it's a book, because it has no agency, because it does nothing. We do things with the Bible. Hopefully we're going to do some good things with it.
Good evening, and thank you for joining me with Conversations with Taz for the Sunday Sitdown. Before we get started, I just want to send my sincere condolences to the family and friends of Aaron Carter. Some of you may have heard about this, some of you may not. Looks like in the wee hours of the morning, there was a bit of racism gone wild at the University of Kentucky. There's a lot to go through and a lot to unpack here. Let's boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's start here. Let us start here. Here we go.
Okay, hey everybody. For those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Kyla Spring, and I'm a student at the University of Kentucky. And I am a desk clerk in Boyd Hall, which is a dorm residence here. And I worked a shift tonight where I was assaulted and called a nigger, and someone said other racial slurs towards me. This girl, she walked in about at 1 o'clock, maybe 1 o'clock, 1:15, somewhere in between that time. She did not look like a resident, so I did not open the door. But when she came in, she stumbled across the front desk over to the elevator, and she started talking to the elevator. It is a part of our job that if we see a student that's very drunk, we are to call an RA to help for them to be able to write up a report or really just to make. Okay.
You're almost there.
You're almost there.
No one's trying to hurt you. Just have a seat, please. Yep. Where's the fucking mic? Oh my gosh. Exactly. I do not.
Do you?
That's what
If you want.
Could you open that door for those two guys? Yep. Nigger bitch. I could pick that. No, that was an hour. Yes. You're fucking poor. Nigger bitch.
I hope.
Could you stop, please? No. Could you stop? No. Thank you.
I'm getting lost in the dark.
You're a nigger. You're a bitch. Oh, Jesus. I did not get paid enough for this. Exactly. And you're a nigger. Thank you. Thank you. You're a nigger and you're a bitch. You're a nigger and you're a bitch.
Yeah. I got the song video.
Me too.
I got the song video.
You're a bitch. Are you trying to get me to get her to like get chairs and things? No. I'm drunk. You're drunk. You're a nigger and you're a bitch. No. I'm crazy.
I'm gonna let me set this down.
In the morning, but
Sorry.
definitely will feel better. Nope.
You're almost there.
You're almost there. Just no. No one's trying to hurt you. Just have a seat, please. Yep. Where's the fucking mic? Oh my gosh. Exactly. I do not.
Do you?
That's what happened.
If you.
So a lot of people have seen this video going around, and if you haven't, it's a UK student calling this girl the N-word, calling her the B-word, and assaulting her. I can't post it because it'll get taken down. I have actually had the pleasure of working with this girl all semester and can say that this does not surprise me whatsoever. Literally, since the first time I've met her, I've always said that there was something off about her, and have had to report her multiple times for being extremely disrespectful to me. Like, I've never been this blatantly disrespected in my life. I've sent upwards of 17 different screenshots of messages of her being just blatantly hateful to me, to our bosses. She's made multiple comments about people of color. She just will continue to pick at me, trying to get me to fit a stereotype that she has a black woman in her head. And because I wasn't giving her the reaction that she wanted or expected, she just continued to do it. So now that we have tangible evidence that this girl is not only disrespectful, but also blatantly racist, the university needs to do something about this, because this should not be tolerated. There's more. Prior to the incident at Boyd Hall, this occurred. She got kicked out of one of the bars I work at, too, for biting and racial slurs, too. That's when she should have been arrested. That's when she should have been arrested. Date of birth is correct, but she's listed as Jane Doe. And I checked again later today, still listed as Jane Doe. She's been identified, and she was released at 9:37 a.m. This is a statement from UK. Early this morning, a disturbing incident was captured on video in a residence hall. The video is deeply offensive and we take it seriously. Right. A student at the University of Kentucky has been arrested in connection to a physical and verbal assault against another UK student. The arrest was made by UK police at Boyd Hall on UK's campus. Sophia Rosing was booked at the Fayette County Detention Center at around 3:50 a.m. on Sunday morning. Her charges include alcohol intoxication in a public place, disorderly conduct, 4th-degree assault, and 3rd-degree assault of a police officer. Why wasn't she charged with a hate crime? Like I said, released 9:37. And you can pause to read this. This lovely individual found all of the information regarding her. And there's the secondary part of the information, since she wanted to be listed as a Jane Doe. And then I found this in the comment section. Is she in a sorority? No, she was kicked out after her behavior in Colorado. And then, of course, we have the sympathizers. Right here. What she did is inexcusable and disgusting as a Kentucky alumni. I'm ashamed our university allowed this and hope they expel her. However, what you did is downright repulsive. You spent hours of your time to publicly dox someone's family for the actions that are not their own. You should be ashamed of yourself, and I hope you find peace in your life. Find God. She learned this from somewhere. And her father is a top exec for Messer. Who did she learn it from? And are these views being carried into the workplace and other places? Is it? Because that's what I would like to know. Stop having so much sympathy and wanting to protect racist and telling the victims of racism how to handle it and how to deal with it. Because when you shield them from the consequences, do you think it's going to get any better? Do you? Yeah, I'm going to tell you. It doesn't. Now we've got some updates on Elon Musk and Twitter. Grab a drink, grab some snacks. This is going to be a bit of a long one because it's several videos. Let's go.
Listen, Elon Musk is proof that money does not buy smarts.
It gets so much worse. A lot of people see the verification status as like a status symbol, but it actually derived because of a lawsuit. If you go on the New York Times, there's an article about the history of verification. But basically in the early days of Twitter, anybody could pose as anybody else. There were predators preying on 13 and 14-year-olds pretending to be celebrities. There were a ton of scams and all that stuff. Eventually, notable people started suing. Plus the verification badge to show the real person. A lot of people have come to see it as a status symbol, but in reality it serves a very good purpose. And now when you make sure that anybody can apply for one and get one, basically ensure that businesses and notable people do not want to be on your platform. Because they wouldn't want to be on a platform where their brand power is diluted by fake accounts that are also verified. It's likely that Twitter will be held liable for scams that are perpetuated under the verification badge, because verification was meant to curb that in the first place. And brands will not only have to manage the fallout from their own bad decisions, but they'll have to do it for other people that are verified that look exactly like them.
So I've been talking to laid off Twitter workers all day and reading the fine print, and I discovered that Elon Musk, I think, is in worse legal trouble than I even thought yesterday. And here's why. Because when he signed the agreement to buy Twitter, you know, that agreement that he tried to wiggle out of, and oops, just as he was about to go to trial, he realized he couldn't because his signature on a contract is just as legally binding as anybody else's, even though he's the richest man in the world. Yeah, that agreement. Well, way down buried in that agreement is some fine print, which I read because that's what I do for a living. I read the fine print. And it says that he promised that workers who were laid off after he bought the company would get the same compensation and benefits that workers got before he bought the company. So then I had to find out, well, what did they get before? And here's what I found out. They got 2 months severance. And in addition, they got their bonuses prorated, and they got their stock option vesting moved up. So in English, what does that mean? Tech workers, a big part of their deal is always stock options. And that could be worth $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more. So it's a super important part of their compensation. And guess what? He's not offering that now. That puts him in violation of the agreement. That means that the workers have rights. Oh, that's my Wonder Woman picture from the country of Oman. That's another story, but here I am in my home office. So that means those workers have rights because they're third-party beneficiaries under that contract, which means they were intended to get the benefit of that contract, so they have rights. So I've been talking to tweeps all day long. Happy to continue to talk to you. Reach out to me. We're putting together a case against Elon, and I think it's going to be a good one. Stand up for your rights, folks.
As of today, you can now buy a blue checkmark now on Twitter for the low price of $7.99, and I just want to remind you of all the fuckery that's happened since Elon took over in the last 10 days. After laying off half the workforce and gutting the content moderation team, everyone turned Twitter into 4chan, and all the incels got a hard-on because now they can use the N-word. That made all the luxury brands and advertisers like Audi or Lululemon be like, yeah, we can't spend money with Twitter anymore. And Elon's like, how come? And they're like, cause we can't have our ad next to some tweet that says kill all the Jews. That made Elon go back on Twitter to go cry about how all these activists and liberals are really the reason why these advertisers aren't spending money. Like it's their fault that everyone's screaming, hang the N-words. Meanwhile, what's left of Twitter's workforce is now sleeping in the offices and working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. While HR's frantically in the background trying to rehire everyone that they let go because shit's breaking and nobody knows how to fix it. And people are just like, pay me double. And having done all that in 10 days, now people on Reddit are playing a game like, oh, how would he ruin Reddit if he took it over? Or how would he ruin your mom's business if he took it over?
Elon Musk is learning the hard way why identity verification on social media is not something that should be bought and sold. I just hopped on Twitter and was shocked to see this tweet from Elon's account. After much spirited discussion with the females in my life, I've decided that voting blue for their choice is only right. They're also sexy females, by the way. There are thousands of comments below, either praising or attacking Elon's public support of reproductive rights, and I still couldn't believe he was willing to say something like this publicly. It took me a while to realize after looking at this tweet that while it says it's from Elon Musk, the handle is @Kathy Griffin. There are thousands of people who believed that Elon Musk said this, and this is why letting people pay to have a verified identity badge is a horrible idea. This is literally the definition of instant karma.
All right, so if you're keeping score, the richest man in the world dropped $44 billion to buy a failing social media site and then promised to remove all content standards. This was met by celebration from all the rock dwellers who crawled out to flood it with the N-word on Musk's first day. This caused advertisers to pull out, which caused Twitter to lose even more money, which caused Musk to walk back the whole no content standards thing to set up a content standards council. Then, to make up for the loss in advertising revenue, Musk proposes charging $20 for anyone on Twitter to be verified. Stephen King tweets that he's not paying $20 a month for a blue check mark, so Musk responds in a tweet, how about $8? So he haggled himself down on the blue check price to $8. So now you can claim to be anybody you want on Twitter as long as you shell out $8 a month. Then he fired 3,700 Twitter employees, which was 50% of the staff. Now he's realizing that was a mistake and he's inviting some of those people to come back. Cue the fanboys telling me that he's still a genius.
So in a typically brilliant move, the somehow sentient Pokemon known as the Alonius Muskrat, the guy who now owns Twitter, just tweeted, oh, might I mention, the guy who bought Twitter to protect free speech, tweeted, going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended. Essentially, there was this really funny thing going on, this really funny trend of people getting blue check marks and then changing their profiles to Elon Musk impersonation, like basically parroting, making fun of Elon Musk accounts. Again, I need to specify, the whole reason why Elon Musk said he bought the platform to begin with was to protect free speech. But all of a sudden, free speech doesn't mean anything when Elon Musk's ego is being blown out. Just know that whenever somebody like this screams about free speech, it's not actually about any sort of free or speech. They don't care if you engage in Holocaust denial on the timeline, as long as you don't, talk bad about the billionaires. They don't care if you say slurs because they know you're more likely to support people like Elon Musk anyway, if you do that, just as long as you don't upset the CEOs and billionaires. I need the right-wingers that keep championing people like this to understand that they do not care about your views or your values. They don't. Again, they do the hell not. It's always been about using conservative values as a platform and pedestal to gain more power. That's all it's been about. This is all so obvious, and I don't know how some of you still don't get it.
There has been something very spicy that's happened since Elon Musk bought Twitter, and it relates to his ex, Amber Heard. Amber Heard's not on the platform anymore. She's vanished, and we don't know whether she deliberately left the platform or whether she was deplatformed by Mr. Musk. Now, it's pure speculation as to why she left. There are many hypotheses, including one, she doesn't want to have Elon have her data, or two, maybe she has a cordial relationship with Elon and, he's told her to delete her profile. My personal favorite is that now that he's brought in an $8 a month checkmark fee for the blue tick, she can't afford to be on the platform anymore. Follow me for more legal TikTok.
Tech billionaire Elon Musk, pictured here once again reminding us that no amount of money can purchase charisma, has been doing everything he can to turn Twitter into a hellscape, and continues to escalate his efforts as he has fired huge portions of Twitter's staff. And they're exactly the sort of staff you would expect Elon Musk to fire. Groups like the Ethical AI team, the Ethics, Transparency, and Accountability team, and the Human Rights team have all been dismissed from Twitter. These are the groups that investigate human rights violations, and they are also the group that look for algorithmic biasing. Twitter's just cutting bait on that. And not only that, Musk also demanded that staff find $1 billion in savings annually from infrastructure costs. Because of course nobody at Twitter had thought, what if we just saved $1 billion? It took Elon Musk to come up with that one. But it's very important to Elon Musk that you know that it's not his fault. Nothing that's happening is his fault, never is. It's those woke leftists. Quote, Twitter has had a massive drop in revenue due to activist groups pressuring advertisers, even though nothing has changed with content moderation, and we did everything we could to appease the activists. Extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. Which, couple of things. One marketing guy answered this saying, Elon, great chat yesterday. As you heard overwhelmingly from senior advertisers on the call, the issue concerning us all is content moderation and its impact on brand safety and suitability. You say you're committed to moderation, but you just laid off 75% of the moderation team. Advertisers are not being manipulated by activist groups. They are being compelled by established principles around the types of companies they can do business with. These principles include an assessment of the platform's commitment to brand safety and suitability. This includes the trustworthiness of the leadership team and the behavior of the CEO. You claimed yesterday that you are deeply committed to content moderation, yet you've eliminated the vast majority of people who did that work for Twitter. How do we reconcile these? Elon Musk's answer? He blocked them. Free speech, everybody. And in the meantime, Elon has been completely breaking the verification system. As this verified Keanu Reeves account reacted to this, well, it's actually somebody named Abner Pastel? I don't know. And there's like a whole bunch of blue checks who have changed their usernames to Elon Musk just to sow chaos. Now, it's hard to say specifically how this is affecting Twitter's value at this point because it's not publicly listed anymore. But Tesla is. And because of how heavily leveraged the Twitter deal is against Tesla, we can get a general sense of how things have been going. Well, I took it over right around here, and oh, that's unfortunate, Elon. This is your daily reminder. Billionaires ruin everything.
So Elon is out there doing first-year design student back-of-the-napkin iterative design in public right now, and it's quite something to behold. Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has and who doesn't have a blue check mark is bullshit. Power to the people. Blue for $8 a month. I mean, the richest man in the world who is verified going out full on let them all eat cake is quite something to behold. It also shows how fundamentally disconnected from the user base of Twitter he is. The assumption that people just have $8 to throw away on a blue badge every month is an incredibly elitist way of thinking about the world. The vast majority of people in the world do not have $8 to give to Elon for a blue check mark. But let's keep going. Price adjusted by country proportionate to purchasing power parity. Great. That is sort of equitable. Still stupid, but I guess sure. You will also get priority in replies, mentions, and search, which is essential to defeat spam scam. How is that essential? What's going to happen is the people who are currently spamming are just going to buy priority. So yeah, no, but sure. Ability to post long video and audio. So you have to pay to be able to post content now. Half as many ads. Half as many ads? You pay $8 a month for half as many ads? So to remove the lords and peasants system, he is introducing a literal lords and peasants system where those who pay $8 a month get verified, get boosted, are allowed to post more content, and get fewer ads. I mean, it is the exact opposite of what he says he's doing. And of course it gets worse. For $8 a month, you get paywall bypass for publishers willing to work with us. So I guess if a publisher enters into some program, then a verified user doesn't have to go through the paywall, which just sounds like the publisher losing a bunch of money and revenue. That makes absolutely no sense. This will also give Twitter a revenue stream to reward content creators. So as a creator, you would pay $8 a month, and then part of the income from the $8 a month from all the creators goes back to the creator somehow instead of sharing the ad revenue. I mean, yeah, back of the paper napkin, iterative design by a first-year design student. I would fail Elon if he was in my class. This is just so poorly thought through. And why is he doing this in public?
Money does not make you smart. Coming from money does not make you a great businessman. I wish that society would stop acting as if nepotism babies are just getting a small loan. A lot of times they're inheriting the entire family business, or they're being handed a position in the business. And Elon Musk is the pinnacle of an example of the participation trophy kid. He has zero business sense. Look what he has done to Tesla. SpaceX is afloat due to government funds. You should have known that Twitter was going to turn into a dumpster fire. Excuse me. When he submitted a business proposal, yes, I'm using this very loosely, via Twitter to the then powers that be at Twitter. At what point did you think this was going to go well? At what point? Billionaires are used to nickel and diming every penny from you. He's not about free speech. He's about free publicity and pretending to look like he gives a damn about humankind. He doesn't even care about his own children. Let's not forget a few months ago where his trans daughter came out against him. Again. But okay, y'all keep worshiping billionaires, or those pretending to be billionaires. But let's take a quick break and look at this season's ad.
Style. Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
about your favorite historical song?
This is a really interesting question. The first thing that came to mind for me was Bob Dylan. He has a lot of songs that could fit this category. But one of the more interesting ones is The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, because I feel like in this case the song is actually more well known than the historical event. Hattie Carroll was about this young, rich white man that killed a black woman in Baltimore in 1963. He was this 24-year-old kid named William Zantzinger, and he oversaw his family's 630-acre tobacco farm in Maryland. And on this one night in February 1963, he gets super drunk, and he has this toy cane. The Washington Post described it as a wooden carnival cane, and all night he's been hitting people with this cane. Then at 1:30 in the morning, he shows up at the Emerson Hotel in Baltimore. They're having some big ball called the Spinster's Ball. And he's assaulting all these people. At one point, he hits his wife with a shoe. He's hitting people with the cane. He's yelling out racial slurs. And he goes to order a drink from Hattie Carroll. Hattie is 51. As Bob Dylan says in the song, she's born at least 10 children. There's some debate over whether she had 9 or 11 children, but important thing is she's a mother. He orders a drink from her and she's busy, so she doesn't respond right away. And he throws a fit, starts hurling all sorts of racial slurs at her, and he hits her with his cane on her neck, like in between her shoulder and her head. And she walks to the back room. She tells her coworkers, "That man has upset me so I feel deathly ill." They call an ambulance for her, and she dies in the hospital hours later. Originally, William Zantzinger was arrested for assault, but after she died, they issued a warrant for his arrest for second-degree murder. The official cause of death was a brain hemorrhage. She had a stress reaction to the abuse that she suffered at the hands of William Zantzinger. Zantzinger's excuse is he was drunk and he doesn't remember anything. The charge gets knocked down to manslaughter, and he's sentenced to 6 months in prison. The day that he's sentenced is August 28th, 1963, which happens to be the same day that Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. Also on that day, as part of the March on Washington, Bob Dylan was there, and he performed 2 songs. And after the March on Washington, Bob Dylan is taking a train back to New York, and he reads the newspaper, and he reads about the story of Hattie Carroll. When he gets home, he immortalizes the case in song. It's widely considered one of his best protest songs. It's one of Dylan's favorite songs. He continued to perform it for years and years. But the story itself kind of faded away. After William Zantzinger served his 6-month prison sentence, he went back to live a normal life. It should be noted that the county he lived in Maryland was heavily segregated. They didn't integrate their schools until 1967. A lot of the people around him defended him and thought that he didn't do anything wrong. He went into real estate and faded from the public eye until 1991 when he was arrested again. Turns out he wasn't paying taxes on a lot of the real estate that he owned. The properties were foreclosed on, but he was still collecting rent from the poor black tenants that lived in those buildings. Eventually he was found guilty of fraud and deceptive trade practices, and he was sentenced to 18 months in jail. 18 months for the fraud when he did 6 months for the murder. Finally, he died in 2009 at the age of 69. But before his death, people asked him what he thought about Bob Dylan and the song about him, and he called Bob Dylan a scumbag and a no-account son of a bitch. The original version of The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll is on Bob Dylan's 1964 album, The Times They Are A-Changin'.
Stared at the person who killed for no reason, who just happened to be feeling that way without warning, and he spoke through his cloak, most deep and distinguished, and he handed out strongly for penalty and repentance, William Zantzinger with a 6-month sentence.
Before we move on to the next story, let me just say this. Stop referring to white men as kids, especially when they're committing hate crimes, crimes against members of the BIPOC community. No hate to that creator. It seems to be an unconscious thing. He was not a kid when he murdered that poor innocent woman. He was an adult. He had a wife. Now moving on. How often are you told that members of the LGBTQIA+ community are groomers? It's so evil, but isn't it amazing that everyone who spouts that, you find out either they are a groomer or a pedophile, or they're protecting a groomer and or pedophile. Let's take a look.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bear.
What else can you say? Can you say kitty?
Kitty.
And yet again, the GOP nor Christian nationalists could use GPS to find their way to talk about this story. Just like they're still silent regarding Matt Gaetz. And see, pedophilia can lead to unwanted pregnancies, diseases, trauma, PTSD. And speaking of how to remedy an unwanted or unneeded pregnancy, let's see how anti-choice has been owned.
Representative Eric Swalwell's exchange with an anti-choice advocate went viral. Vote blue, November 8th, Election Day.
Ms. Foster, you think a 10-year-old would choose to carry?
In the 10-year-old case, first of all, the Ohio...
No, my question is, would a 10-year-old choose to carry a baby?
In the Ohio case, the Ohio Attorney General said that abortion would have been justified.
Focus on the question, please. Would a 10-year-old choose to carry a baby?
I cannot...
Do you think a 10-year-old should choose to carry a baby?
I believe it would probably impact her life, and so therefore it would fall under any exception and would not be an abortion.
Wait. It would not be an abortion if a 10-year-old with her parents made the decision not to have a baby that was the result of a rape?
If a 10-year-old became pregnant as a result of rape and it was threatening her life, then that's not an abortion. So it would not fall under any abortion restriction in our nation.
Ms. Warbelow, are you familiar with disinformation?
Yes, I am.
Did you just hear some disinformation?
Yes, I heard some very significant disinformation.
Why don't you tell me about that?
Yes, an abortion is a procedure. It's a medical procedure that individuals undergo for a wide range of circumstances, including because they have been sexually assaulted, raped in the case of the 10-year-old. It doesn't matter whether or not there is a statutory exemption. It is still a medical procedure that is understood to be an abortion. Beyond that, I think it's also important to note that there is no exception for the life or the health of the mother in the Ohio law.
Love how she tries to say, oh, it wouldn't be called an abortion. This is part, one smidgen of why so many people are confused about what an abortion is, what an abortion, excuse me, is used for. It's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And they know that they're blatantly lying. They know that this misinformation and disinformation is extremely, extremely harmful. But they're just going to continue. Oh, we have yet another update on Kanye West. Let's start with why he had to give away all of those White Lives Matter t-shirts. And then we'll come back and talk about an update I knew was coming. He uses the same playbook over and over again. But let's go.
So in a weird twist of fate and trademark chance, Kanye will not be able to sell the White Lives Matter shirts because the trademark's already owned by two other black men. And they've owned it since October 2021. Child, the ancestors have a weird sense of humor.
Like I said, directly from the Kanye West playbook, because he's done this before, coming from hiphopdx.com. Kanye West claims he was mentally misdiagnosed and nearly drugged out of my mind. Kanye West has made claims that he was mentally misdiagnosed when it seemingly comes to his bipolar disorder and that the medical professionals attempted to drug him out of his mind. What should be obvious by now is that I was raised to stand by my truth regardless of the consequences, Ye wrote on Twitter on Thursday, November 3rd. So I will say this again. I was mentally misdiagnosed and nearly drugged out of my mind to make me a manageable, well-behaved celebrity. Kanye West attached frightening text messages allegedly from celebrity trainer Harley Pasternak, I hope I pronounced that correctly, which found Pasternak threatened to institutionalize Kanye and send him back to Zombieland forever. Second option, I have you institutionalized again, where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to Zombieland forever. Play date with the kids just won't be the same, the message read. Yeezy continued to showcase text exchanges with Pasternak, who is Jewish, as they debated about the origins of black Israelites. I was told that if I expose the truth of the bad business practices, everything is going to be taken from me, including my black children, he wrote. And everyone has bore whiteness to the public Emmett Tilling of Ye, but God has something on my heart not to back down. Now your children are black. Now Black Lives Matter. Again, if you all remember, a few years ago, we got the same thing. Oh, I wasn't diagnosed properly. My medication was wrong when he was doing this public stuff. Do I believe that there are mental health issues here at play? Yes. Does that make you become hateful to people? No. And let us not forget, it also came out that just like Trump, we now know why they get along so well. Kanye West idolizes Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler. Mental illness did not make you do that. Your hobbies, your likes and dislikes have nothing to do with mental health issues, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, from someone who suffers themselves. Even in the most manic of episodes, does not make me become problematic or hateful. Now, from one hateful being to another, let's get into this Oath Keeper trial testimony before it kicks up again tomorrow. Let's go.
So, head of the Oath Keepers, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, who's on trial for seditious conspiracy, among other charges for, trying to violently overthrow the government, took the witness stand in his own defense today. And boy, did the jurors get an earful. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So I was in court today when lead defendant and head of the Oath Keepers, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, took the witness stand and began testifying in his own defense. His testimony will continue on Monday. You may recall that Rhodes and 4 of his fellow Oath Keepers are on trial for essentially trying to violently overthrow the government or violently interfere in the execution of the laws of the United States. In other words, trying to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. Now, Rhodes, as I say, has only been on the stand about an hour and a half, and then the court broke for the day. His testimony will resume on Monday. But even what he said today in that hour and a half inspired all sorts of headlines. Oath Keepers leader testifies 2020 election was unconstitutional, paints himself as anti-violence. Now, friends, I was in the courtroom. Let me give you my perspective on how Rhodes' testimony is playing out. And let me not bury the lead. It ain't going so good for old Elmer. But I'm going to give him this. He opened strong. Here is how his testimony began. Question from his lawyer, please state your name. Answer, Elmer Stewart Rhodes III. I go by Stewart, my middle name, for obvious reasons. Okay, 1 point for old Elmer. It was a cute answer, even a little self-deprecating. But that was the only point Rhodes earned during his testimony today, because very quickly, Elmer Stewart Rhodes began to show the jury exactly who he is. He's a braggart. He's arrogant. He's self-important, bordering on grandiose. He's a know-it-all. In short, he's a real I alone can fix it kind of guy. Why do I say these things? Here's why. Rhodes told the jury that he started the Oath Keepers because law enforcement officers in the United States were not sufficiently trained. He then went on to give the jury a tutorial on how to police a protest, how law enforcement should behave at protests. even though Elmer never served one day as a police officer or a law enforcement agent of any kind. In short, Elmer exposed himself to the jury as an insufferable blowhard with an unwarranted superiority complex. But frankly, all of that distasteful, off-putting, alienating testimony from Elmer Stewart Rhodes didn't prepare me for what was to come next. Rhodes' attorney asked him, "Sir, do you believe the election was stolen?" Rhodes responded, "I believe the election was invalid. It was unconstitutional." And then he added, and that's even before you get to the, quote, fraud and all that other stuff. So Rhodes then told the jury, "I am a constitutional expert," and he said that his conclusion, his determination that the election was unconstitutional was due to pandemic-related changes that some of the states made to voting procedures. So Elmer has designated himself the arbiter of what is and what is not a constitutional election, which does kind of explain, though not in any common sense way, why Elmer Rhodes would say, if Donald Trump doesn't invoke the Insurrection Act as part of the need to stop Joe Biden's certification, the certification of Biden's election win, then the Oath Keepers will take matters into their own hands. So that sure seems like a whole lot of foreshadowing of what we can expect when Elmer resumes his testimony next week. It looks like he's going to claim that because he is the arbiter of whether an election is constitutional or not, he and the Oath Keepers decided they had to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. They're the ones who get to make that decision. Well, you know what, friends? I'm looking forward to his continued testimony on direct examination, that is, while he's being questioned by his own lawyer, a friendly force. But I'm really looking forward to him being cross-examined by my former colleagues at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Because justice matters.
And let's not forget the disinformation and misinformation that led to Trump's self-coup, aka the insurrection. Coming from the Business Insider, GOP Representative Dan Crenshaw says election deniers privately admit the conspiracy to challenge Biden's legitimacy was always a lie. I'm just going to read you the keynotes from this article. Representative Dan Crenshaw, in an episode of his podcast, recalled arguments in the GOP over election denial claims. Behind closed doors, he said, GOP officials acknowledge fraudulent election claims are a lie. Many politicians are saying things they know aren't true, he said. It's a huge manipulation. Yeah, people are putting their freedom on hold. Giving up their freedoms, giving up their businesses for a lie. An obvious and blatant lie. But I'm going to keep eye on the trial as always, because just like that gentleman said, I cannot wait for the cross-examination of dear old Mr. Elmer. And you may have heard, you may not have heard, there's a new law in New York regarding wages. Let's take a look.
We're about to find out just how racist and prejudiced employers are. Bet. It might take some lawsuits to happen. I'm going to be all on this. Here's how. In New York City, there's a new law. It says this: if you advertise a job, you have 4 or more employees in the city of New York, you have to tell people what is the least you're willing to pay and what is the most you're willing to pay. Let me give you an example of how this would effectively play out. Let's say I'm a law firm and I'm looking to hire somebody with 5 to 10 years of experience. What that means is I have to go through my law firm and look at who I have with 5 to 10 years of experience, determine what's the least that I'm paying people, what's the most that I'm paying them. I bet if you do this, interestingly, the day this law went into effect, Goldman Sachs pulled all their job advertisements. Why? Presumably because they don't want to tell people what they're paying other people at their firm, because it might reveal that certain types of people, certain races of people, certain genders of people, certain religions of people might be doing a whole lot better than other types of races and religions and genders. And so, let's get it. This is an important law. Shout out to everybody in New York government who posted this. You're going to hear a lot more on this page about that. If you have questions and you think that, hey, you know what? I'm black at this company, or you know what, I'm a Muslim at this company, and it sure seems like I make a lot less than everybody else. You have a shot. Go check out the job board. See if your company is advertising your job. See if they list the range. Ask yourself, where am I on this range, the low or the high? I love this law.
Have you ever wondered why you've pretty much been taught your whole life that it's against etiquette to talk about your wages with the people that you work with, but your family and friends always want to ask you how much you make? They don't want you to talk about it at work because they know that they're paying you differently. They know that they're paying men higher than women, and they know they're paying white people far more than anybody that is non-white. Now they have to put up or shut up. Now, unfortunately, things like this and stories like this, we're going to see less of, at least on MSNBC. Not sure what I'm talking about? Coming from HuffPost, MSNBC cancels The Cross Connection after Tucker Carlson verbally attacks host. The Cross Connection with Tiffany Cross is no more. Tiffany Cross announced Friday that MSNBC canceled her Saturday morning news program after less than a 2-year run. The move came after Cross had become a target of attacks from Fox News and pundit Tucker Carlson. Cross said in a statement that she was disheartened to learn of the decision, which came abruptly and surprising many of us. MSNBC President Rashida Jones was deeply involved in the call to cut ties with Cross, according to the Washington Post, which said the network allowed the host contract to lapse. A rotating cast of hosts will fill Cross's time slot until a more permanent solution is found, the Post reported. The show started in late 2020 following a summer of mass protests against police brutality and made issues facing communities of color a central feature. Fresh off the heels of a racial reckoning, as so many have called it, we see that with progress, there is always backlash, Cross said in her statement. Now is not the time to retreat to politics or business as usual. It is my hope that my 2 years at MSNBC has been disruptive and transformative, changing how politics are discussed and making policy more digestible. So y'all just letting Tucker Carlson run every news network? If he doesn't like somebody, we're getting rid of them now? You're really increasing the power of conservative sycophants. No wonder Trump spent so much time watching Fox News and asking Fox News for advice during his time as president. This is whew. A man who has been sued more times than people have tried to cancel me on social media, which is a lot. Someone who legally has to call themselves an entertainer and not a journalist. You're removing a black woman from the airways, not because she had poor ratings, not because they were complaints from her actual viewers, but because Tucker Carlson targeted her. Y'all make my soul itch. Y'all make my soul itch. But that goes hand in hand with the rise of Christian nationalism. Let's take a look.
I'm gonna let the whole world know Jesus is coming. 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 Get on your feet, church. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you believe that President Donald J. Trump was in fact elected to become the President of the United States? How many believe that? USA! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, it's Eric Trump!
Love you all, and we'll be back doing things that we're going to bring this country back, because our country's never been in such bad shape as it is now. I am guilty of the crime of supporting President Donald Trump, loving him for 40 years for his friendship, and thinking that his greatest days of public service lie ahead.
And you will never see what coming, what I'm about to do, and your enemies aren't going to see it either. I am bringing them all down, so this very day, children of Almighty God, arise and take back your authority, take back this nation.
This is our side, the side of laughter, the side of dancing, the side that just wants everyone to be okay.
USA! USA! USA!
They will turn any and everything into a political rally, but then say that everyone else but them is indoctrinating people, is trying to force people into their way of life. But it gets even more bizarre. Here we go.
This is a real ad that Trump just posted on True Social, and you have to see it. It's like we're on another planet. I don't even, what is this?
This lion, he's the king of the jungle. Huge mane out there. He's so big. He's so hot. Now, the little lion cubs, they start messing with him. Biting his tail and his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him. Coming over, making trouble. Still, nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this, and they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, the lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody, runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, The lion has to show the jackals who he is.
The Matrix has to be broken. We all have to be trapped within the same fever dream. That has to be what it is, because it ain't no way. Ain't no way. This. But here's the thing. That's not even the worst of it. Here we go.
Eighth day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a protector. So God made a fighter. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, kiss his family goodbye, travel thousands of miles for no other reason than to serve the people, to save their jobs, their livelihoods, their liberty, their happiness. So God made a fighter. God said, I need someone to be strong, advocate truth in the midst of hysteria, someone who challenges conventional wisdom and isn't afraid to defend what he knows to be right and just.
So now Ron DeSantis and Trump are fighting to be the head of the Trumplicans, of the MAGA hats, of the ultra MAGA cult. And they're trying to out manhood and out Christian each other with these fantastical ads that look like trailers for the worst B-list satirical horror movies ever. I'm still convinced that we're all sharing one fever dream. I was wondering that too. When did we get an eighth day? When did we get an eighth day? But yes, be prepared for the utter and disgusting and below the belt dragging they're going to give each other. They will both tap dance under the big toe of Lucifer to take control or to sustain control at the top of the Trumplican hierarchy. DeSantis wants to be worshipped the way that Trump is, and DeSantis knows that he needs those votes to snatch up his ultimate prize of becoming POTUS. It's not about the people. It's not about making change. It's about power. And after he watched Trump monetize the White House, since no one decided to uphold the Constitution, all of these constitutionalists, all of these originalists, all of these, we must uphold this, I'm a good old patriot. If you think Trump was horrible in office, if you keep DeSantis in gubernatorial office and then he moves into the White House, it's going to be Mad Max. It is going to be unequivocally Mad Max. As always, make sure you check out the links in the description of this video. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and click the bell so you get notifications of any uploads and you don't miss any of the live events or any of the videos, even if you go back and watch them later. And as always, thank you for watching, and each one teach one, each one reach one. Till tomorrow, y'all.
Y'all remember that big stink y'all made about critical race theory? And you remember the hotline that was set up by Glenn Youngkin? Remember all that noise? And he even set up that whole tip line? Well, it turns out a tip line is useless for an imaginary problem. CRT was never a problem. So can we stop banning the books now?